Today in the Roddy's Kitchen, we are going to show you how to make this nice, juicy, delicious sous vide chuck roast. Comes out nice and tender, just like a regular good old steak. Let's get to it. Okay, so for our sous vide chuck roast, we're going to use sous vide cooker. Now, this is a Anova Pro cooker. There's a lot of other sous vide cookers out on the market nowadays. Back in the mid 2000s, there wasn't a lot of them out. So you have a lot to choose from, varying prices, varying features. One of the old, if you look on a DIY, do it yourself, sous vide cooker, and there's lots of contraptions that people have used over the years, slow cookers, and all kinds of things. This one is actually a deep fryer. It has a temp setting to keep the oil at a certain temperature. And so I actually used to use this to sous vide cook for several years before I got this one. And what this one will do is basically instead of oil, I would just fill it up with water. As you see, it's got all kinds of nice carbon, or excuse me, calcium buildup, even though I've cleaned it good. There's the water will sit there and heat up, and it keeps it pretty much within a degree or two. And depending on what you're sous videing, which I typically do large meats, tough meats, a degree or two is perfectly fine. If you're doing things like eggs, and that's where you really need to get down to precision, salmon, eggs, where you really want to keep it within a half a degree temperature variance. So let me get this stuff out the way. Okay, also when you're going to sous vide, the whole purpose is basically you're putting your food in a bag and you're cooking it in the water, right? So the food is actually not in contact with the water, so you're not boiling it. It's just to keep it at a precise temperature. So Ziploc bags, the heavy duty freezer, these are my favorite. These are BPA free. Vacuum bags also, make sure you get BPA free ones, which I think pretty much all these food savers are. You can throw them in here, put your food in here, whatever ingredients, vacuum seal it. I have a uh, regular heat style vacuum, not a chamber vacuum. A chamber vacuum is good for doing liquids, but they're really expensive. So today we're going to use a good old freezer gallon Ziploc bag for our chuck roast. Okay, so depending on if you decide to buy a sous vide cooker, generally they're of some sort of shape like this. And basically, as you've seen in my other videos, I have this sitting back there because I've been cooking in it. Good old 5 gallon bucket. It's 3/4 of the way filled with water. And then I've modified this lid so the cooker actually will sit down in it, connect or mount on the side just like so. Ta-da! Now, since I have really hard water here, even though I have water softener, the salts will still build up on the base and cooking area of the cooker. So I like to put a little bit of vinegar in the water. That helps to clean off any deposits from the salt that's left in the water from the water softener and calcium as you're cooking. We're going to put this back here to get it turned up. Okay, so I've set the temperature to 140 degrees. I've set the time. I'm going to set the time to 25 hours. And hit start. It will start circulating the water and heating it up at the same time. Once it reaches the set temperature, which is in this case is 140 degrees, then the timer will start counting down. Now, you can use a range of times. That's the beautiful thing with sous vide. So I'm going to leave it 24 hours. Tomorrow night, essentially, we'll be having that for dinner. And if I'm, you know, a couple minutes early, an hour late, pulling it out, it's not going to kill it. It's going to be perfectly fine. So there's a long range. In fact, at 140 degrees, you basically get a medium rare steak type consistency, which is what I prefer. Uh, there's a couple other temperatures, 150, 165, where you get either a more like a firm pot roast or a fall apart pot roast type of texture. And I encourage you to try those out. There's tons of different times and temps for all kinds of things out there on the web. Now we're going to go ahead and get our meat ready. We're going to use some liquid Bragg's aminos, which is basically a soy sauce paste. Some garlic cloves. I like to just give these a crush, and we're going to throw them in our bag. And we're going to use extra virgin olive oil. So this is about a 2-pound chuck roast. We're just going to go ahead and put that in our Ziploc bag. Like so. Crush up our garlic. Rough crush, that's it. Throw them in the bag. A little bit of kosher salt. Both sides. You can do this while it's out, but it's really not necessary. We're just going to give it a light, enough coating. We're not really coating it like we're building a bark. Okay, in goes this Bragg's aminos, and then we're going to add some extra virgin olive oil. When you sous vide and you don't add any fat to the bag for pretty much everything, it gets the proteins that are starting to come up to the surface will give you like a white kind of film, and adding some olive oil, which is what I always use. You can use butter also. Prevents that and just helps it have a little bit more flavor. Mix that around. Okay. Now, you want to get all the air out. That's where the vacuum sealer part comes in. If you're doing with a Ziploc bag, you can suck the air out if you're cooking for yourself, but the easy way to do it is to go ahead and set it in your water, and as it pushes down in the water, it squeezes all the extra air out. Now, depending on what kind of container you're using, I just let them sink, so I seal it all the way. You see that? It pushed all the air out of the bag. What you can also do, which I will sometimes do on this, is just set the open edge over the edge. Set the opening of the bag over the edge. Put the lid on it. There's some containers you can find out there online like this. For my cooker, this one is too short. There's bigger, clearer ones you can use. Anything you can figure out how to mount the cooker in, you can basically use as a container. Some people use pots. I prefer to, because I typically am doing longer cooks, 24, 36 hours. I like to have a good range. Every cooker has a different water level, so you have to pay attention. There's a minimum and a maximum line on the cooker, and that's where you want your water to stay. When you're doing a long cook, some of the water likes to evaporate off, which is why I use the lid. Okay, that's it. Now we just let it sit and cook away. If you're having problems with it floating, where it always wants to sit on the surface, I have a Ziploc bag, as you can see, that is well used with a bunch of these little glass weights. You can use marbles, you can do whatever, fishing weights. You can even just take some of your silverware and put that in the bag with it. I've seen some people actually put it in the bag with the food, but I don't like doing that. So if it starts giving me problems where it'll float, I will actually just take this bag and I'll use one of the office clips and I'll clip them together, drop it in the water, and boom, that holds it down to the bottom. See you tomorrow. Okay, now that we have had 24 hours later, our timer is stopped. We've been actually cooking for about another hour after the timer stopped, and we're time to take out the chuck roast. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take this out, set it right on this grate. Ooh. I'm going to go ahead and pat it dry. You can slice it up and eat it just like this. Just try to damp all this excess moisture off. Be careful when you're using the torch. Okay, as you see, it's already got a dark color from the soy sauce, Bragg's mixture. So I just like to char it up a little, get that reaction on the brown reaction on the fat mostly. Now we're gonna slice it up, see how it is. All right, let's try it out. I love the fatty pieces. As you can see, nice and tender. Yeah. What do you think about that? Tester number one, tester number two, tester number three. Okay, there you go. Sous vide chuck roast. Take a nice long cook, but it's worth the wait. Makes a simple chuck roast nice and tender. Don't lose a bunch of flavor, boiling it in different liquids and all that kind of stuff a la pot roast. And yeah, you can slice it up, make sandwiches, eat it like steak, hot sauce, whatever your preference is. All right. By the way, don't forget, like, share, subscribe, and leave some comments.